Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome inside the vault for a April 11th Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm your host, Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside my co-host, Sarah Ellison. We're glad to be with you today. Please like the video on the way in. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're coming up on 24,000 subscriptions. And hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. As promised, we shifted one topic from yesterday just based on timing to today. So the secondary topic will be sort of the evaluation through Jeff Zaribek's eyes and his writing on The Athletic of Eric DeCosta's drafting resume since he took over for Ozzie Newsome back in 2019. But we will begin with a piece of breaking news, Sarah. And at 40 years young, Joe Flacco is not only back in the NFL, but he's back in the AFC North, rejoining the Cleveland Browns. We'll tell you what the significance of that decision is for Cleveland, for the division, for Joe himself, whose career continues. And then after that, and after Eric, the secondary topic, we'll get into why DeAndre Hopkins may very well be a better fit in Baltimore than he was last year in Kansas City, where he spent half the season. So all that and more is what we have coming up. Happy Friday to you. And it's a big weekend in the Ellison household, by the way. You're promoting your boy Aiden. I'm fired up for him and his role, obviously, in Annie coming up.
Aiden and London, of course, Lennon in the ensemble with the orphans, but obviously Aiden playing Daddy Warbucks and Annie Jr. So I saw a little preview of it last night. So he played last night. They had like this professional preview before they went out, and so saw him last night. Opening night tonight. They got 3 shows on Saturday, and then they have 2 more shows on Sunday. So their voices are going to be spent by the end. But I'll be stuck at the theater. All stuck is not the right word. The first couple times watching it is fun, but then once you watch it a few more times, you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. So should be a fun weekend though.
And selfishly, I wish it was a week earlier. I would have loved to have been there. Can you imagine we had to fit in Annie? At least one performance of Annie.
That's why I didn't pick this weekend, because I was like, there's no way we could actually get Vault stuff done. Like all my time will be for my kids this weekend, every single second. So
yeah, for sure. And there's with the way we packed ours, there's just not a chance. So best of luck to your kids. Can't wait. And that'll be fun to hopefully get a little recap from you on Monday after things finish up. But we'll begin here. As we just mentioned, a reunion is on deck and is now official. The Cleveland Browns and Joe Flacco reached agreement on a 1-year, $4 million deal worth up to $13 million based on incentives. We'll see if he has a chance to hit said incentives. Adam Schefter, first to report this. Flacco is now returning to Cleveland. We all know this is a reuniting, not only with the division, but with Cleveland, where he spent 2023. Deshaun Watson went down with an injury there late in the season. They brought him in, signed to the practice squad, Sarah. He went on to win Comeback Player of the Year, which is why he and Lamar were actually at NFL Honors together a few months later after winning that award. So Shefty also went on to note that Flacco spoke with the Steelers and Vikings, but opted to spend his 18th NFL season in Cleveland. And again, Joe is 40. And his career is continuing. What a story.
It's funny because a couple years ago, he didn't have a job heading into the season, right? When he was the Comeback Player of the Year for the Browns, he was sitting on the couch. And I remember us reaching out to like his agent or his publicity person. And she's like, we wanted to get him on the show. And she's like, no, he's focused on returning to the NFL. And we're like, he's not getting a job. And then like last minute, he goes back to the Browns. I guess I'm happy he didn't choose the Steelers, because the only thing worse in returning to the AFC North as a non-Raven is doing it as a Steeler. Vikings would have been nice, but Bobby, from a Joe Flacco, as a Joe Flacco fan and admirer, I'm happy for him. I know he wants to play this game as long as he can. There are some guys that are like, hey, I want to retire on top. I don't want the NFL to kick me out. Like, I just want to go out on top. That is not Joe Flacco. He is waiting for the NFL to kick him out. And now he's 40 years old. I know this was always a goal of his. So to play this long is excellent for him. On the Browns' point of view, what a bunch of dummies once again, because they should have done this last year. Okay, you said the same thing, so I won't step on you. I'll let you talk about how this was dumb that they didn't do it last year.
It's all good. Yeah, I mean, you and I have this is just reiterating what we've said in the past, right? Like they just never cease to amaze you with the business decisions that they make. So, again, Joe is brought in down the stretch in 2023, like I remarked a minute ago. Deshaun had went down with a season-ending injury. They signed Joe to the practice squad, and from the couch to the practice squad to starter to comeback player of the year. Now, did they only get one round in and was a one-and-done exit in the postseason? Sure. But where were they headed when Deshaun went down and prior to going down? Nowhere fast. So the point is, Joe Cool came in and saved the day and brought them to the postseason, even if it was an early round exit. What happens after that? We've had Browns reporters on here. We've heard from our guests. We've heard from reports and other analyst work that have been out there that spoke to the rumblings, right, internally in Cleveland. It had gotten out that, hey, Deshaun felt threatened. Deshaun felt as if there was a strange dynamic because of how much of a fan favorite Joe became. Now, is this confirmed? No, but there's rumblings out there. It's why you call it rumblings, rumors, whatever you want to call it, because of Joe's popularity. So what does Cleveland do? They don't re-sign Joe. He goes to Indianapolis. He backs up Anthony Richardson to start. AR goes down with an injury, and then all the other drama that happened as a Colt last year. So Joe ended up getting a handful of starts. Was it as good of a story as it was the year prior in Cleveland? No, but he was still a starter. And now as a result, Cleveland's bringing him back. But Sarah, to your point a minute ago, why did they not do this a year earlier? Because they go on to post a 3-win season. Deshaun only plays in, what do I have here? It's just 7 starts for him. He's their $230 million man. He may have played his last snap as a Cleveland Brown. So again, it's so Browns-like that you have to sit here scratching your head a year later. Joe's got a decent chance, probably depending on what they do in the draft, to be their starter week 1.
Yeah, we'll talk about starter things, but you're absolutely right. Nobody can accuse the Browns of not giving Deshaun Watson a fair chance to keep coming back. They give him his guaranteed money. They do it despite all of his legal troubles with the massage therapist, this and that. And then they have the comeback player of the year. And again, for Deshaun Watson, they're like, okay, Deshaun, for you, we will ship him out, even though we will make it clear that he's the backup. And Joe would have probably been fine as the backup. But we'll ship him out for you. And so finally, this move is just like on top of what the owner said. Haslam over at the owners' meetings where he's like, yeah, we didn't make the right decision, basically finally owns it. And now they're being like, and now we're going to bring the quarterback back that you didn't want us to have. So we're going to take them. But Bobby, that's the Joe Flacco view I outlined. You just outlined the Cleveland Browns kind of view. Now we got to look at it from the Ravens view. And my friend, I'm afraid this is going to create a season-long rift between us once again. You and I are going to be arguing all year. You're going to want to bring up every cool Joe Flacco thing that he does. Let's say he does start. And every time he has a good game, you're going to put in quick hits. And you're going to be like, that's my guy Joe, and that's my guy Joe. And I'll be like, I would be celebrating with you if this was with him and the Vikings or somebody in the NFC. Shoot, maybe even the Colts. But Joe Flacco, as much as I love him, as much as I appreciate the Super Bowl win, and boy, do I appreciate it. I was there. It was, one of the highlights of my life. He is now my enemy once again. Football enemy, of course. Love him as a human being. But now he's with the enemies. I don't care that those enemies have been dumb in the past. We saw what he did. And I know you're just going to be happy for him as a person. And that's going to supersede your thoughts of, how well the Ravens are doing or anything like that. It's not going to supersede mine. And so we're going to be at battle. You and I are going to be battling all season long once again.
I'm kind of pleased that you're very much aware this rift will exist from this point forward. And for those of you who've been with us for at least a year, you know what we're talking about here. So this is going to be good. But speaking of those enemies, Sarah, what are they going to do with the second overall pick now that this move has been made? Right. Does it affect this move whatsoever? Or does this move affect their plans whatsoever in less than 2 weeks from now when they are again slated to select number 2 overall in the opening round of the draft. Daniel Jeremiah might think so. He was on with your friend Kay Adams recently, and he expects Cleveland to draft the quarterback, but not at number 2 overall. So that begs the question, what's the rest of their draft selections look like? Well, the next one after that would be a day 2 pick at 33 overall. The Ravens are at 59, if you're wondering, on day 2 in the second round. But Cleveland is at 33. What does that mean? They're the first pick on day 2. So what quarterbacks are going to be there? Will Jalen Milroe slip out of the first round from Alabama? Will Will Howard from Ohio State be there? Probably. Riley Leonard, Notre Dame, probably going to be there. Not sure if Jackson Dart's going to be there, Sarah. He's sort of the player that seems to be rising in recent weeks and potentially could even be a top 10 pick based on some folks that I've been watching. So, I don't know. But this does tell me that Joe's got a pretty darn good chance to start, even if they do bring a rookie in, Sarah. Obviously, there's probably going to be a competition, and Kenny Pickett is on this depth chart right now as well. They brought him in this offseason, but it's going to be curious.
Okay, here's my question. This quote right here from Daniel Jeremiah, did you just see the tweet or did you happen to listen to it?
I haven't pulled up the clip yet.
Okay. Well, I'm curious because, listen, if you don't have a quarterback, and there's no way signing Joe Flacco sets them up to be like, okay, now we don't need Shedeur Sanders, okay? Like, if they don't draft Shedeur Sanders, it's not because it's Kenny Pickett, and it's not because of Joe Flacco. It's because they don't believe in him in terms of a value at number 2, and they think somebody would be better value for the future of their franchise, like an Abdul Carter or like a Travis Hunter. Those are the only other 2 names. Because, Bobby, in this league, you have nothing if you don't have a franchise quarterback. They have wasted away the Myles Garrett years, right? It's just like, what do they have to show for it? One of the best defenders in this league over the last several years. And so there's a part of me that it's like, if they do skip over Shedeur Sanders, just because they've bungled so many quarterback draft picks, that I'm like, man, maybe Sanders is all that because the Browns just don't see it, right? And so, yeah, I'm just super curious. Like, what is their plan then? Because the Atlanta Falcons keep saying it's not Kirk Cousins. And as much as even we both love Joe, but I know that you're going to love him more than me this year. Even you would have to say, okay, it can't be the plan to have Joe and Kenny Pickett, right? That can't be it. Like you said, maybe it's Milroe or whatever, but wouldn't that be more of a development guy rather than plug him in at week 1? I don't know. Maybe he could come in week 8 or something like that. But they must really not believe in Shedeur Sanders looking at their quarterback room and passing at that at number 2.
The answer to your question, I think, lies here. And I went and got the Daniel Jeremiah clip so that we could just listen to it for more context. So here is the attached video from the screenshot of the tweet that you're seeing up on the screen right now about Daniel's belief that Cleveland will draft a quarterback, just not at number 2.
I heard this Milroe, Jalen, the Alabama quarterback, he's going to the draft in Green Bay. How do I interpret that? Because he's not a lock to go in the first round, is he?
No, not at all. I think it would be a surprise if he went in the first round. But there's been, you hear all kinds of stuff during these last few weeks, and one of the teams I have heard him connected to is Cleveland. So that's not going to be up there, where Cleveland's picking at the top of the first round. But in kind of that, let's get the 5th-year option scenario, let's try and get back in and take one late. Maybe potentially that's where he could fall in. I thought he was pretty much a lock to be a day 2 pick at some point in time. But the fact that he's going to the draft, I don't know the reasoning there. I haven't seen the entire list. Is there a want to have some guys there for the second night, or is he the one name that just looks kind of like, wow, that one's kind of out of left field a little bit for surrounded by other guys we assume will go in the first round.
I'd like to see Cleveland trade up in there from the top of the second. I'd be down for that. Otherwise, I don't know why he'd go.
I think Cleveland's going to get a quarterback with one of their first 2 picks, and I don't think it's going to be their first one. So I think the question is, do you be patient? Are you comfortable with a few of these guys where you can just sit and wait? Or do you get a little antsy, a little jumpy, and maybe want the 5th year, or do you come back in? So again, I think Cleveland will end up with another quarterback on their roster. We'll see what happens with Cousins, out into the future. But I do think they'll get a young guy.
Okay, so I want to amend what I said before, because so he's saying he thinks for sure they're going to get a quarterback with one of their first 2 picks, okay? Because, of course, Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett doesn't change that. But I said that they must really not believe in Shedeur Sanders. Let me tweak that a little bit. Maybe they just feel like the gap between Sanders and somebody like Milroe there is small enough that adding in either a Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter makes up that gap and then some, right? That like they still might believe in Sanders, but maybe not have him so far ahead of Milroe that you take him over having one of those other 2 elite superstars plus a Milroe. So, and he mentioned like the Lamar Jackson, right? The Lamar Jackson formula that where do we have him? Where do we say? They're number 33. So easily trade back into the first round. All they got to do is go one spot. Again, assuming nobody else is going to take them. And so they could get them for 5 years. So look at Daniel Jeremiah, always full of good information.
Oh, it's fascinating. This is totally fascinating. So there you have it. Cleveland sits at number 2, number 33 on day 1 and day 2. And it's just a matter of, I think what's for sure is that it's just a matter of when, not if, they are bringing a quarterback. So what does the AFC North look like right now at the position? If the ball were to be rolled out today, Joe Burrow, of course, would be in Cincinnati as QB1. By the way, who's ranking Burrow ahead of Lamar in your graphic here?
Who's ranking Burrow? I don't know. This is an old graphic. I just grabbed it to get all the quarterbacks together. It's an old graphic. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's accurate right now, though, in terms of starters, projected starters, because
I put those. I did my Photoshop skills, Bobby. I put Joe Flacco and Mason Rudolph over there.
Oh, I gotcha.
See?
Well,
they don't have names under there. You notice that?
Yes, now I do. So Flacco, Rudolph, Lamar, and Burrow right now are your projected starters. Obviously, that you would think that's subject to change with Rodgers, a potential signing there being imminent in Pittsburgh, and then will Flacco be competing with? I can't imagine. I just can't imagine Pickett, who's really been a backup in Philly since he was traded. He has been a backup in Philly since he was traded from Pittsburgh. I can't imagine him beating out Flacco or a rookie to start for them this year. So in my mind, it's between Flacco and a rookie, or they're bringing in Cousins. And you imagine the 2 veterans being on that roster with Pickett being on your practice squad and Flacco and Cousins battling it out for a starter. I mean, I think Kirk would win that job, but
but Kirk's not. Well, according to Atlanta, Kirk's not coming. But they're not letting him go.
Yeah.
And
they got a lot of money they're paying up a lot of money.
But why wouldn't they have done it when, like, if they were going to do it, there was a quarterback frenzy, which left Aaron Rodgers last. There were a ton of desperate teams, and they've moved on and made other plans. So if they wanted to do it and be off the hook, I don't know, why wouldn't you do it then? And maybe there's something going on with the cap that I'm unaware of with his contract situation. So maybe there's something there that, because I just haven't, paid too much attention to what Atlanta's doing with their quarterback situation, but they continue to say they're not going to trade him, and they didn't when there was a quarterback frenzy. So, yeah, I'm with you. This is crazy. This is the pre-draft world we're living in the AFC North. And if they do get somebody like Milroe or somebody else in the second round, there's no way they're going to be ready week 1. So then it becomes who's going to battle it out for week 1 starter job? Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco. I mean, I would go with Joe, but maybe they want to go with a younger guy that they think maybe has other upside. I don't know.
Well, you don't have much tape on Kenny right now. He's been backing up Jalen Hurts. So you just kind of like, all right, unless he has a stellar summer, then you would think Joe has the upper hand just because of the amount of starts that he's had under his belt in recent years between Cleveland and Indianapolis. But
Yeah.
Stranger things can happen once you get to Cleveland camp.
And then with the Steelers, like for sure, like Joe, I can see remaining on this graphic week 1. Mason Rudolph is definitely coming off, right? Like there's no way, right?
Yeah.
And so it's either Aaron or Dart or somebody that they draft. So yeah. It's just woo. Makes you happy and grateful for Lamar Jackson. You're always grateful for him, but looking at these other 2 teams in the AFC North scrambling makes you even more grateful.
One more piece of quarterback news while we're at it before we turn the page to evaluating EDC's drafting resume. Josh Johnson, Sarah, in his career, speaking of longevity and just being around, making himself available like Joe has all these years, Josh continues to do so as well. He's now going to back up Jaden Daniels, or at least be, I guess they have somebody in front of him. So Ben has him as the 3rd string favorite in Washington as joining their quarterback room. I'll look up real quick who's behind Jaden. But the point is, Josh is continuing his NFL career.
He is continuing his NFL career, and it's Marcus Mariota.
Oh, yeah. So he's
And
definitely
Josh.
he's one of the better, more capable backups in the league. So
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if Josh ends up in a practice squad type of situation and just makes himself available, as he always tends to do when injuries inevitably happen.
I need to know about I'm just curious, not that I need to know, that sounded a little bit wrong, but I'm curious to know, is Josh Johnson married with kids? Because look at his career. It is wild how many times he's moved. So this graphic was made by CBS Sports in 2023. Obviously, we know in 2024 he stayed with the Ravens, and now he's returning in 2025 to the Commanders. But that's 14 teams. It remains 14 because he's returning to one, but there's been more changes than that. He's been on 14 different teams in 4 different leagues. And some of those other leagues in 2012 was the Sacramento Mountain Lions of the UFL. He in 2018 played for the San Diego Fleet in the AAF. And then in 2020, he played for the Los Angeles Wildcats in the XFL. But man, and I got to tell you, look at his picture. You know how sometimes, like, the classic Tom Brady meme where, you Photoshop or AI, has him move year to year, and he's got different faces and smiles, and you can kind of see him aging. They show him aging throughout the years. Like Josh Johnson looks a little bit older from 2008, but not a lot. He's just like not aging whatsoever here. But I mean, the Bucks, the 49ers, the Sacramento Lions, he's been with the Browns, the Bengals, back to the 49ers, back to the Bengals, the Jets, the Colts, the Bills, Ravens, Giants again, Texans, Raiders. There was the Fleet, I think, in there, the Commanders, the Lions, the Wildcats, the Jets, the Broncos, back to 49ers, back to Ravens, and now back to Commanders. That dude is committed to football. He up and leaves any city at any time, and he must be a guy that can get along with anybody and can pick up any offensive playbook, because he's used to this by now.
It's just a testament to, again, the longevity, the love for the game, the willingness, to your point there, to move on moment's notice. So he's now in Washington. We'll see if he ends up being on that practice squad. Maybe they keep 3 quarterbacks. We'll see. Oh, no, they're not going to keep 3 quarterbacks with the new rules, but he is with another NFL team yet again. A couple super chats, which are really just new members now that I see it. Bill Randazzo is our newest member.
Nice.
You can also become a channel member if you're interested in doing so by clicking on the link that we have included in a couple different places. One is in the live chat as a pinned comment. The other is in our show notes. It's a great way to become a Voltron channel member. We've got different tiers available to you. We rolled this thing out last month. We're really enjoying it. It's a great way to give back to the channel, but it's also a great way to get more involved as well. And for whatever reason, yesterday's members have been popping up. So Heather, appreciate you. We gave you your shout out yesterday, but thanks again for becoming one of our newest channel members. So Sarah, Jeff Zarebek of The Athletic, as we've teased a couple times now, just because we had to move it yesterday after we were short on time, took a look back at Eric DeCosta's drafting resume since he took over for the great Ozzie Newsome back in 2019. You've brought in some snippets from that latest piece.
Yeah, so what he did, Jeff Zrebeck, was rank Eric DeCosta's draft picks by position. So he's got 10 positions and he ranks, how well he drafted at each position. So I figured we could take these 2 positions at a time and kind of react, see if we agree with Jeff here. So we'll start with number 10, meaning the least successful draft picks at this position. But this position, he hasn't really taken swings for good reason, because Ozzie Newsome left Eric DeCosta a great gift, which is Lamar Jackson. He's been a 2-time MVP, a perennial playoff carrier of the team to get them there. And so they really just haven't needed to go after it. So it makes sense that this would be number 10. He has drafted a couple potential backups that didn't pan out. Eric DeCosta picked Trace McSorley in the 6th round of 2019. And then last year, which really can be credited to quarterbacks coach
T. Martin.
T. Martin, thank you. Because remember, he was he loved Devin Leary. Was very vocal about that. And they asked him to go out and scout people, and he came back with Devin. So Devin Leary, he was 6th round of 2024. And I think he wound up on the practice squad last year as a rookie. So that's number 10. Then number 9, this is the opposite story of quarterback, where Eric DeCosta has needed to refill the cupboard. He's taken more swings and not the best swings. So obviously here's the picks under Eric DeCosta. Jalen Ferguson, may he rest in peace. He was in the 3rd round of 2019. And then it was Odafe Owe, who was a hit. Wouldn't call him a home run hit, but was a hit. Double-digit sacks last year. Slow developer. 1st round of 2021. Dalen Hayes, 5th rounder, also in 2021. Then David Ajabo, where, Eric DeCosta was trying to find value. He was injured at his pro day, thinking, his first year he'll be injured, but he'll be this huge prospect once he comes back. That has not come to fruition. That was the 2nd round of 2022. Tavius Robinson, I'd say a hit, especially as a 4th rounder, 2023. And then Adisa Isaac, which is a 3rd rounder in 2024. It's hard for you to rank everybody so far because we haven't gone through it, but neither one of these completely stellar positions where he just hit a home run.
Yeah, just quickly, and obviously I don't have much to say about the quarterback position. We all know why, and you've already outlined that. So just speaking on the outside linebacker quickly, you can't call a hit or miss for Jalen Ferguson because of his tragic passing, to your point. I still am so saddened by that 48 hours when the Ravens community lost Jalen and Tony Saragusa literally within a 24 or 48 hour span in June of 22, June of 23. I think it was June of 22. You and I had just started our show. So if it was, that would have been June of 23. But gosh, what just a total time stops in moments like that. And so you obviously can't evaluate that, nor should you. Odafe I view him as a hit. You call him a slow developer. I think that's fair. Dalen's a miss. Ajabo is a miss unless he comes out of nowhere here this season. And I think Tavius and Adisa, the jury's still out. Do you think that's fair for those two?
I'd say that Tavius is more, yes, for sure. Adisa's the jury's still out. He was 2024. But Tavius, I think that right now you can call him a hit. He, as a 4th rounder, you want somebody who can come in a rotation and be a reliable guy. He's good at setting the edge. I think he can take another step forward. Do I think he was like a triple or a double? I don't know if that I'm going to go there yet, but I think the jury is already starting to come in, and I think that you can more categorize him in the hit category.
That's fair.
All right. Let's go to number 8 and number 7. So number 8, Jeff puts cornerback for Eric DeCosta. We've got Iman Marshall, 4th in 2019, Brandon Stevens in 3rd round 2021, Sean Wade, 5th round 2021 also, Jalen Armour-Davis, 4th round 2022, Demarion Williams, 2022, Caillou Blue Kelly, he gone, 5th in 2023. Then Nate Wiggins, just last year as a rookie, and TJ Tampa last year in the 4th round. So that's cornerback at number 8. Number 7, we're climbing a little bit here. The picks are Justice Hill in 2019, the 4th round, J.K. Dobbins, 2nd round 2020, Ben Mason, 5th round 2021, kind of fullback there. Yeah, fullback there. Tyler Batty, 6th round, 2022, and then Rasheen Ali in 2024. So maybe you can do what you can do again and say miss hit on some of these guys. Let's start with cornerback.
Yeah, corner, there's a lot of misses on here.
Yeah.
You know, I think I just look at this list, and while the jury's still out on Tampa and Nate appears to be a major hit after one season, other than that, he's taken a lot of swings and misses. Jalen Armour-Davis is still on this team and can come out of nowhere and surprise a lot of people this year. But if I'm a betting man, how can you do that with his availability or lack thereof since he was drafted? Pepe's not with the organization anymore. Wade was traded. Stevens leaves a sour taste in your mouth because of last year. They successfully developed him as a former college running back to somebody that was above average the year prior to last year. But obviously from a recency bias just leaves this lasting impression on you because Brandon was the weak link. And he was targeted as such last year. So, you know, that's sort of a tweener, and Marshall's a miss. So that's how I view corner. What about you?
I would say there are a lot of misses on day 3. So I think it's important. Like a miss on day 3 is very different from a miss on day 1 or 2. So it's like, and they've been throwing a lot. And so it's like, well, do you keep doing that? Because there have been a lot of misses. I agree with you that TJ Tampa, the jury is still out. But the rest, I think we can still categorize of those day 3 as misses. It's just like, yeah, but it's like missing from, it's not like you're missing a layup, right? Like some of them, maybe you missed a 3-pointer. Some of them maybe like in the 5th round. I mean, are we shooting from the logo? Maybe not quite half court, but you're shooting from the logo. You know what I mean? And so you expect more misses there. I think Brandon Stevens, you're right. The recency bias makes you think that he was terrible, but he actually was a good draft pick.
Yeah.
You know, like the way he played in 2023, we all thought he was going to make it. I didn't think he was going to be in Baltimore in 2025, but I thought it was going to be because he was going to price himself out of Baltimore. That was my prediction going into 2024. That's how well he played in 2023. Right. And so I don't know. It's still the most mysterious drop off ever, but I think he was a good draft pick. I think you remember that those misses are from day 3 and absolutely nailed it with Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa. The jury's still out.
Yeah, I think you're doing a good job here, and it goes without saying. We're recognizing the draft status of these players. We're not holding, Eric up against the wall for 4th and 5th round, or for 5th and 6th round misses.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to call it what it is. Call it spade a spade.
Yeah.
And if you're 50, if you're 50%, if you have a decent batting average in those rounds, then hey, all power to you and your scouting department. And they have had plenty of hits in those later rounds, but obviously your batting average isn't going to be through the roof, and we get that on those days. To the running back and fullback position, and of course, Ricard is undrafted, so keep that in mind from the pre-DeCosta era. He's not on this list. He was 2017, if memory serves, out of Maine. But to me, this is an area of strength. Justice Hill's been a great story. Multiple contracts. This is somebody that, crazy enough, was the 2019 draft class. So that would have been what, Marquise? I think Marquise was their first rounder. And actually, I bet you Eric is super prideful of Justice because this would have been his first draft now that I think about it. 2019 was his first draft. Ozzy's was 2018, his last draft. So between Justice being around for multiple contracts, all that you've gotten from him, not only as a backup, but as somebody that is a standout special teamer, good locker room guy, has developed into a solid above average blitz picker-upper. That's a great story. That's a hit. JK, there's going to be plenty of dialogue on this, Sarah, in the chat because of his lack of availability. I view him as a hit. I do. And the reason why is because this gosh darn guy, his rookie season and in between those knee injuries, was sensational and was one of the top running backs in the entire league. And you're just left wondering from his time in Baltimore, what if he had stayed healthy? To me, he's a big hit. And before we continue the list, I'm sure you have comments on those two players.
Well, yeah, I'll just say this. I can't knock Eric DeCosta for J.K. Dobbins getting a nasty injury in the preseason, right? I mean, I just can't knock EDC for that. But I also can't be like, I'm giving him credit either, right? Like you can't, because we don't know what would have been. Yeah. So that's probably why it's sitting here at number 7, because you're not knocking him, but you also can't be like, he's the home run that everybody thought he would be. And maybe Eric would have been correct, but we'll never know. So I can't really do either. And then, I remember people criticizing the Ben Mason draft, like when it happened. They're like, why are you using a 5th round pick on a fullback? And then he never even, showed up really. So then there's a couple of 6th and 5th rounders, but Justice Hill, man, 4th rounder, what he's doing now, the way he protected Lamar in when he would be back as a running back in pass protection, or he'd slip out of the backfield, or he just was like a nice 1-2 combo with Derrick Henry. And it's probably a combination of him playing so well and Keaton Mitchell maybe not being 100% that Keaton never was able to get back on the field. And so here's this young guy, this sensational Keaton Mitchell, and it's up to Justice Hill to keep playing as well as he has to be like, no, I'm not giving up my role. I'm not giving up me being the second punch to Derrick Henry. So,
and just a reminder here on some Dobbins nuggets from earlier on in his career, and I completely agree, by the way, with everything you're saying there. And if it continues to trend in the direction that it has the last couple of years, Justice ain't giving that up.
Yeah,
and you know what?
Getting better.
Yeah, and it's tough, right? Because there's an embarrassment of riches in that running back room. But guess what? You got Keaton on an undrafted deal. Mm-hmm. You got him protected. He's not going anywhere. So that's the good news there. And obviously, he's had his fair share of health issues too, coming back from a very serious torn ACL, which definitely was a factor in them not necessarily being gung-ho about getting him out there last year. And they weren't desperate needing him the way they were the year prior when JK went down. But just a couple nuggets on JK, and then we'll move on. He set a franchise record his rookie season, most rushing touchdowns in the history of the organization. So, and then I just wanted to refresh my mind too on his yards per carry, because I remember that flirting with different records as well. He averaged 6.0 flat yards per carry his rookie season. So he was somebody that I still will categorize him as a hit. I know he went on to miss the entire 21 season from what you just mentioned, which was that brutal knee injury on a horrific FedEx field that summer in a game that he never should have been playing in. And then he played in just one game in 23. So yeah, the availability was not a calling card of his, but when he was available, he was a needle moving guy for them.
Number 6, Jeff has wide receiver. So you've got Marquise Brown from first round 2019, Miles Boykin, same draft in the 3rd round, Devin Duvernay, 2-time Pro Bowler as a returner, 3rd round of 2020, James Prochet. Boy, oh boy. Oh, there's whatever. I'll just list them off first. James Prochet, 6th round 2020, Rashad Bateman, 1st round 2021, Tylan Wallace, clutch guy right there, 4th round 2021, Zay Flowers, first Pro Bowl wide receiver in NFL or in Ravens history. I said in NFL history. 2023, and then Devontae Walker, jury obviously still out, 4th round 2024. Let's take that before we move to offensive line, because there's a lot. There's a lot.
I feel like we need an hour for this one, but we can't.
Well,
so
no.
I guess I'll just summarize it quickly with Marquise is a hit. He's not a number one on 32 NFL teams, but it's his role and towards the end of his time in Baltimore, he was a successful 1,000-yard plus receiver that could take the top off of a defense. And he's not a Zay Flowers type, right? He's not going to run through you. He's not as explosive, but he was a hit in my mind, even though in a lot of people's minds, because of the history of this position and because of him not being a true number 1 X, they'll never be able to view him as a hit. I'm not going there. I think you have to take your emotions out of it if you feel that way about him and look at it objectively. And so that's the way I'll look at Hollywood. Boykin was a miss. Duvernay.
That's a hit when you have a Pro Bowl returner from a 3rd round.
I suppose. Yeah, I suppose.
I'm not saying as a wide receiver, but as a third rounder who goes to the Pro Bowl twice as a returner, that's a hit.
Sure, that's fair when you give that context.
Yeah.
Prochet was a miss. Bateman has emerged here in the last year.
It's like Justice Hill, but at wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
Except injuries slowed him down.
The tough part with Bateman is that I kind of want to go in the down the direction of the jury still being out, being that it was a first rounder that they spent that kind of draft capital on, and he only really has one legit year so far as a wide receiver too. So in terms of the hit or miss right now for me, to me that's still an ongoing evaluation.
I think it's pretty clearly a hit. Now, now what the jury's out on is it a single, double, triple? That's what's still out, but it's a hit. You get a second contract and you put up 9 touchdowns last year. How is that not a hit? You can't call it a miss.
All right. That's fine. It's a hit, but yes, we don't know
how deep.
We don't know what base. We don't know where on the diamond this baseball went. Okay, that's fair. That's fine.
There we go.
Wallace. Okay,
that's a hit in the 4th round.
Zay's a hit, and Devontae is jury still out. We know that.
Yeah.
Highland, 4th rounder, single.
Sure.
Single.
But not a swing and a miss.
All right.
Prochet's a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
Right? Miles Boykin is a swing and a miss.
Big time. 3rd rounder.
Big time. Yeah.
Boykin.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
And maybe one of them's a bunt. I don't know.
for
offensive line, we're just keeping this baseball analogy going. All right. Offensive line, a lot of names here. Ben Powers, 2019, Tyree Phillips, 3rd round, 2020, Ben Bredesen, 4th, 2020, Ben Cleveland, 3rd, 2021, Tyler Linderbaum, 1st, 2022, Daniel Fa'alele, 4th, 2022. Here we go. Salah Amuvai-Laulu, I still have it, 6th, 2023, Andrew Voorhees, 7th, 2023, Roger Rosengarten, 2nd, 2024. That's a hit. Nick Samak, 7th, 2024. Let's just do top level stuff here.
Sure. Yeah. To me, there's a few obvious hits here. You know, obviously, right off the top, I think Ben should be categorized as a hit. You may not have known him well until his final year in Baltimore, but he ended up cashing out big time in free agency and going to Denver. Good development story there in the 4th round. I view him as a hit, and he was a starter for the Ravens towards the end there at guard. Linderbaum's the obvious hit, and then Roger, to your point there, after one rookie season. So those are your obvious ones. And then from there, Ben has not proven to be a hit at all. Ben Cleveland has not been a hit. He's still with them. It'll be for depth purposes. I view that as a miss.
Rave Kingdom is coming after you now.
Oh, I'm sure. But would you disagree though?
His is such a weird one because I just feel like he hasn't gotten the opportunity, and when he's out there, it's like he grades well. I don't know how to categorize Ben Cleveland.
See, the Ben one for me, what makes me lean towards the miss category is that while we haven't seen that sample size, I feel like we have to kind of give the benefit of doubt to the coaching staff in a sense, which would have been crazy a year ago to say that about Ben because everybody was in such an uproar about why he wasn't being used and why he's in the doghouse and so on and so forth.
But they just re-signed him to a second contract.
It doesn't inspire me.
Why? It's a second contract. It's something that doesn't make him a miss for sure.
There's no guaranteed money to it. I just.
You don't think he's going to be on the team this year?
I never said that. I'm just saying.
You said there's no guaranteed money to it, making it sound like he could be cut before the season.
There's just
That's
very
not
little
a miss
risk,
if you get a second contract from your same team.
I think he's been a miss.
That's a swing and a miss, not even a bunt.
I think it's a miss. Sarah, do you remember the expectations coming out of Georgia? They were nicknaming him Big.
Yeah, no, for sure. I hear you on that. He didn't hit that. Like the expectation from my point of view when I first saw him, I thought it would be at least a double, right? 3rd rounder, could be a starter, all that kind of stuff, would protect Lamar for sure. I'm not saying he's like a double, but it's not a swing and a miss when you have a reliable backup who just got re-signed. A swing and a miss is Tyree Phillips, who got cut after his second year.
Phillips
That's
is
a swing and a miss.
I would
You know,
I
there's
would see
levels
that.
to this.
I see Phillips as a miss, but if we're going to start to rank misses and have different,
Got to.
you could do that with hits too. I just view Ben as a miss a lot due to the expectations that were surrounding him, and also just because I think the Ravens are desperate in a sense to bring in depth, and that's why they kept him around.
All right. Well, they're
going to have to do draft weekend too.
We're going to agree to disagree on Ben Cleveland. Is Tyler Linderbaum a home run, knowing that there's still a grand slam on the board? Home run?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will also say this: Roger Rosengarten right now looking like a triple. And Daniel Fa'alele. There's one that seemed like it was going to be a swing and a miss, and I'm still not on saying that he's anything phenomenal, but he did transition and he did become a full season starter, right? It was all 17 games. Am I correct in that? All 17 games. So Fa'alele, I expected, very little. And when you start all 17 games, what kind of hit is that? Bare minimum, a single, maybe a double.
Yeah. Sal's a miss. Voorhees, jury's still out because of sample size and injuries. And Samac, we don't know much because he's a backup center. So
I don't know much about him at all.
Yeah.
All right, number 4, inside linebacker. These lists are getting smaller now. The offensive line was a lot. So was wide receiver. All right, we got Patrick Queen, first round 2020. Malik Harrison, third round 2020. Trenton Simpson, third round 2023.
2 of the 3 I can confidently tell you are hits in PQ and Malik. And with Trenton, he was redshirted essentially, aside from special teams, his rookie season because of PQ still being around before he left for Pittsburgh. And then last year he was demoted, and they're talking as if he's going to be darn good chance, or really he's already a shoo-in starter to be the weak side linebacker on early downs this year. So I'm just not that comfortable evaluating him yet.
Yeah, I think jury's still out, but it's a little nervous. The jury's been deliberating for a while. We thought we would have a decision last year. But I agree with you on the other 2. Malik, so underrated, right? Just like one of those, does a lot of dirty work, can move positions, all that kind of stuff. We know Patrick Queen became a Pro Bowler. All right, tight end. Mark Andrews was 2018, so he doesn't hit GM or Eric DeCosta's GM list. So we got Charlie Kolar, 4th round 2022, and Isaiah Likely, same round, same year.
Yeah, a couple hits for me. How about you?
Agreed. And Isaiah Likely could be more.
Yeah.
Could be more.
Yeah. And Kohler on any other team could have had the chance to show that he was more, but not in Baltimore.
Not in Baltimore. Defensive line gets number 2. Dalen Mack, 5th round 2019. Nnamdi Madubuike, 3rd round 2020. Broderick Washington, 5th round 2020. Travis Jones, 3rd round 2022. I see just a bunch of hits outside of Dalen Mack.
Yeah, Nnamdi and Travis are the obvious hits. Broderick was awarded an extension, a second contract, hasn't lived up to the hype that came with that. They got out in front of it, but he has to be categorized as a hit. I would agree. So this one's pretty easy, D-line.
Nnamdi, home run, not a grand slam. Home run. Grand slams are like for Hall of Famers, like Lamar's a grand slam, Ray Lewis is a grand slam, stuff like that.
And Nnamdi, I think, is deserving of being a home run because of simply his 2023, because that was historic for Ravens purposes, and he ultimately ended up getting the bag because of it. And then after that, because he showed up on tape and popped like that, the guy was seeing double teams they were game planning for him specifically. So guys around him like KVN and other guys on the edge like Adafe were able to eat because of his sheer presence in my mind.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, Broderick Washington being a hit in the 5th round, that helps bring him to number 2. And number 1, this is pretty nice because you have Kyle Hamilton in there, but Geno Stone, 7th rounder in 2020, eventually becomes an interceptions leader in the NFL while playing with the Ravens. Kyle Hamilton, home run, potential grand slam. Sanusi Kane, 7th round 2024, special teams guy. And he's like, I think he had the 3rd most special teams snaps. And this does not count the undrafted guys, but those are the 3. And with Kyle Hamilton being there, I think it's an easy number 1.
Yeah, Evil Smarty wants to know where Bo is. Bo's undrafted out of Maryland, so he's not on this list, to your point. Bunch of hits across the board. Would love to see more from Sanusi. You guys, a hit stick in special teams. Preseason, he was impressive as well. Look forward to seeing him build on that out of Purdue last year. Gino obviously got the bag in free agency, and the 7th, obviously, to your point there, puts him vaults him up because of that 7th round, day 3 selection. And guess what, Sarah? I see them more and more. We're less than 2 weeks out. I think this list is going to stay preserved next year. I think they're going first round safety, and I think they're going to, and I'm just starting to get that urge. I'm starting to get that feeling that safety is going to be it. And I think they're going to hit on safety as well. So that's the safety position is going to be nice and safe in Jeff's column this time next year. If I'm a betting man, you watch.
Would not shock me if it was a safety. Would not shock me if it was a defensive lineman. Would not shock me if it was an edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, a lot of people projecting safeties, Starks, Eamon Watts, list goes on.
That was a fun exercise. Good stuff. You guys can go check that out on The Athletic. Jeff Zaribek's latest. Let's get to some super chats before we talk about DeAndre Hopkins. Yo Jitsu hits us with a 1239 super chat. Says, 2 of my favorite people to watch. Keep pushing. We appreciate you, Yo Jitsu. Happy Friday to you. And Richard Sarah is celebrating 1 month of channel membership.
There we go. Asmodeus, I'm calling it. He says this will be David Ajabo's breakout season. He's going to be healthy. He's going to be impactful. And he will, in all caps, from Richard, says he will have at least 7 sacks. Woo!
Richard, where's this confidence coming from, Richard?
Listen, I didn't know where Rave Kingdom's confidence came from, but I hope he has a Rave Kingdom moment, quite frankly.
Oh, Asmodeus. Romy Raven has become our newest channel member. Romy, welcome to the channel as a new Voltron supporter of ours. We appreciate you for being here. Heather is also a channel member because you can see her emoji. You can also see the green, at least we see it, when she's in the comment section. You see the green font added to her name. But she writes, EDC needs to get an extension done with Lamar so we can sign Henry. Do you think Hamilton will get extended? It's just a matter of when, not if. And then we're going to have some thoughts here in just a second, actually, Heather, on Derrick Henry's extension and how Saquon Barkley's from over a month ago may be affecting things behind closed doors. Another one from Heather, Sarah.
She says Tavius Robinson going to break out.
I think a lot of people might be in that.
He kind of had a mini breakout last year. I just don't know. Maybe not so much in the sack category, but as becoming a dependable rotational guy on the edge. He had a mini breakout.
And Habitual Line Stepper says, you two sound crazy calling every pick a hit, especially when you don't qualify to hit. A single in round 1 isn't a hit to brag about.
I don't know. I feel like we were calling a lot of misses, and we were calling them whether he said we don't qualify the hit. I feel like we did that with singles and doubles and home runs.
Maybe towards the end we started. Maybe towards
okay.
the beginning of the list, we weren't as specific just because we were trying to get through it quickly, and then it ended up being a really long exercise.
Well, and obviously we didn't spend much time because there wasn't a lot to argue. Like from positions 10 to like 7, there's a lot of misses. That's why they're 10 to 7. But once we got into those middle rounds and there were more arguments, yeah. And then obviously once you get to like 1 and 2 and 3, there's a lot of hits.
Oh yeah. Habitual. Did you at least like our banter on Ben Cleveland? I thought that was good, entertaining. All right. Appreciate you guys for being here. Tila, there are over 1,400 concurrents on this Friday. Please like the video on your way in. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. Do all those things that allow this channel to grow. Partner, what do you have for us on DeAndre Hopkins and his perceived fit in Baltimore as it compares to his time last year in Kansas City?
Yeah. So Jeffrey Chadiha, who's a national NFL Network columnist, he recently came out with a column that had one burning question for each team. And so he went on the Glenn Clark show. And here's important background. Jeff originated from Kansas City. So that's like when, one of the guys here in Baltimore that cover Baltimore intimately and then go up to the nationals, there's the national networks, they're still very in tune and very plugged in with the local scene. That's what Jeffrey is with KC. So obviously Glenn Clark, having him on, they wanted to talk a little bit about DeAndre Hopkins and how he might fit here in Baltimore. And Glenn was arguing the same thing we have, which is that, yes, the Ravens have a history of bringing guys who, especially wide receivers that are 32, 33 plus. But in the past, they would bring him here as a wide receiver 1. And this year, they're bringing DeAndre in as a wide receiver 3, potentially more depending on injuries. And so Jeffrey was talking about how he feels like he is a better fit in Baltimore than he was in KC. Take a listen.
And as much as Odell Beckham maybe didn't live up to being paid $15 million, he was helpful in Baltimore. He made big catches every game that season. I feel like DeAndre Hopkins can be that guy still.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins was miscast in Kansas City, and I think people who were really being honest with themselves when he showed up here understood that. You look at Patrick Mahomes and his willingness to throw contested catches throughout his career. He has never been that kind of quarterback, and DeAndre Hopkins is exactly that kind of receiver. He's not a fast guy. He's going to try to bully people and use those great hands. And so I wasn't surprised that it went downhill, but I do think in Baltimore, it's probably a better fit for him because you have to, one, you have to assume that Lamar Jackson's improvisation is going to be a bigger factor in him having opportunities to get open. Derrick Henry's presence, Zay Flowers' presence, those tight ends, all those guys are going to make it easier on him to be able to operate and do certain things. And you're right, he's not going to be a number 1, but I think for his skill set and his savvy, his experience, I think there is a lot more reasons to be excited about him in that offense. Again, not being a 70-catch guy, but being a guy who can do what Odell Beckham Jr. did when he was there a couple of years ago.
Okay, so Bobby, he said that DeAndre was miscast in KC, and he feels like Lamar's improvisation will be good for DeAndre because DeAndre's not like a speed guy, more of like a jump ball guy. And so Lamar also isn't like this big timing thrower, right? Like he's done more of it, but it's one reason why he and Rashad Bateman continue to work on their chemistry because Rashad is that kind of guy. So agree with him that he won't be a 70-yard catch. Then he ends it by saying he can be like OBJ 2 years ago. Do you see that as a good thing? Do you feel like he's a better fit in Baltimore? What's your thoughts on Jeffrey here?
Let's go to OBJ's stats in 2023, just as a refresher for all of us, since we've been doing a lot of projections this week and over the last 2 weeks with where Likely is going to be and where Andrew's going to be and where all these pieces of the puzzle will be productivity-wise. So Odell, remember, he was injured to start the season, wasn't available to start. So he played in 14 games, 6 of which were starts, and he finished with 565 yards on 35 receptions. If we take the usage away for a second, and we're just saying, okay, statistically, DeAndre ends up putting up similar numbers to what Odell did in 23, to me, that's a success. That's a good fit. And I think you'd agree with that.
Well, what's funny is that I guess, and I'm sure they weren't looking up the numbers when they were having this conversation, but DeAndre Hopkins had more yardage and more touchdowns than Odell Beckham Jr. had in 2023. And to your point, maybe that's because he wasn't healthy the whole time. He played in 14 games. So it would actually, if he put up OBJ numbers, they're actually a little bit less than what DeAndre put up last year. But if we're not taking this as like a literal, well, he'll have more yards and touchdowns, but a better fit, I don't think that saying he's a better fit means that he's going to have more yards than he did in KC. It more is like it's a better fit that he's wide receiver 3. And by the way, Odell Beckham Jr. was wide receiver 2. Let's remember that. Bateman, remember, was the one that because of his injuries and because OBJ was there, I remember Todd Monken saying like he was like a new coordinator at the time, right? And so he didn't know what he could get out of Bateman given the injuries, and he already knew OBJ. So Bateman was really wide receiver 3 that year. So OBJ's putting up these type of numbers as wide receiver 2. If Hopkins puts up those types of numbers as wide receiver 3, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
that would be phenomenal because you
Exactly.
still know that Bateman and Flowers are going. Because if he's wide receiver 3 doing that, then it means the top 2 receivers are still healthy.
Yeah, and
So
if to Jeff's point, right, that savvy and that service time experience and everything that he's been through can come out in different snippets of those 500 plus projected receiving yards, right? Those moments where you got to have it. We've talked about those 3rd and 4 situations, those got to have it chain moving situations where you're trying to close out a game or get back into a game, or a 50-50 ball in the corner of the end zone, right? That type of contested catch presence that he will bring to you, like then that's the gravy on top of what he's bringing, because you already have so many weapons that are around him, but maybe, just maybe, he'll bring a new element that'll add to the explosiveness of what this offense already is.
yeah. And again, I'm just not expecting a ton unless somebody gets injured. I just want 3rd down. I want you to move the sticks and be another threat in the red zone. Be somebody that Lamar can go to in big moments, because it's like, all right, I'm throwing the ball up. Hopkins, go and get it. That's really that's what I feel like he's cast here to do. And then to be more if there's an injury. Now, Bobby, before we move, they had another conversation about Derrick Henry, which you teased based off of Heather's super chat. I do have a follow-up question for habitual line stepper. I think Dre Dog was another one. I think there's one other person. While we're talking about Henry, can you give me the 3 players that I deemed a hit during that last section with Jeff Zrebeck that I deemed a hit that you disagree with? Just the top 3, not all of them. The top 3 that you think I was dead wrong. I deemed it a hit, and you're like, no, that's not a hit. All right? I'm very curious what that is, because I wasn't looking at the chat while we were talking until after. Okay, meanwhile, Bobby, we know that both Derrick Henry and Eric DeCosta have been very upfront. They want him to finish his career in Baltimore. Derrick Henry said that at NFL Honors. He said this is where he wants to finish out his career. Eric DeCosta said, do you agree? Or Derek DeCosta was asked later, do you agree? And he said, well, I've got his picture being framed in my office as we speak. So what does that tell you? Okay. So both of them are on board for an extension. Now, we don't know the timing of this. You'd want to get it done before the end of the season. But knowing that they both want it, sometimes you're like, why hasn't it happened yet? So Glenn and Jeffrey talked about, Saquon Barkley, and was there anything with his new deal that maybe could have impacted things in Baltimore? Take a listen.
The ante for the Ravens, because you look at the contract that Derrick Henry signed, that 2-year, $16 million deal, and at the time it made sense because of where he was at in his career and the market for his services, but clearly he outperformed it. But the question you have is, Derrick Henry's going to be 31, and it's 3 years older than Saquon, and even though they both put up great numbers, how much more can you expect from Derrick Henry? And what's a fair market deal? It is tricky because you're not going to give him like a 3-year contract or something like that at this stage. But I imagine that both sides want to find a way to make his compensation better. And there are ways to do it. I mean, whether that's trying to come up with some kind of a 2-year extension, whether it's really a 1-year deal with some way to get him a little more money in this year. But yeah, to be on a contract that pays him $8 million a year on average after the year he had doesn't seem like a great deal for him.
I agree with that. Although, again, I don't think it's $20 million either, right? Like, I think if you're Derrick Henry's camp, you ask for that. But I do think that you understand that Saquon Barkley, for as much as we talk about how it was a good year for running backs, I still think we recognize how unique Saquon Barkley is as like the centerpiece of an offense. And while Derrick Henry is great, Lamar Jackson is the centerpiece of the offense. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Jalen Hurts, who had a phenomenal year, but I think we saw how dramatically different it was. And as good as Derrick Henry was, it was still about the same totality-wise for the Ravens with Derrick Henry as it was the year before with Gus Edwards and J.K.
All right, so kind of agree with Glenn Clark there. I mean, he obviously deserves a raise. Now, nobody knows if the Saquon Barkley deal is really holding things up. We don't know that. I mean, it may just be they don't feel like they need to get to it until later. Maybe they're just waiting for Derrick to be back in town, maybe during OTAs or minicamp or whatever, and that might be a good time to do it. So it may not be because of Saquon, but I agree with Glenn there that it's like, hey, he's phenomenal. The king. He's the king, future Hall of Famer. But $20 million, he's not. He's a little bit older. And the Ravens seem to find success in the running game, as he pointed out, regardless of who the running back is. That doesn't mean that Derrick didn't carry a couple games last year, because he for sure did. And he's a difference maker. So the question is, Bobby, they both agreed he's not getting to $20 million per year, which is where Saquon was, but $8 million per year. Holy crap. We still can't believe the NFL let that happen, that he and Lamar could team up and all Derrick would get was $8 million per year. What's the right number?
Double what he has right now.
You'd put him at 16?
I mean, he's got a
$16 million per year?
He's worth it. I don't know if they'll do it, but
I put him at 12.
He's worth it. I mean,
look at this right in here.
You got to keep
Jacobs
this guy happy.
Here. Josh Jacobs right here, $12 million. Alvin Kamara, just over $12 million. And you know, he is getting older. At some point, he's going to hit a cliff. I'd put him in that 12 million category. I can't do 16.
I get it, but he's showing no signs, Sarah. He's showing no signs. You know, and you want him. I mean, you want to keep him happy. And Kamara, just to me, and that the problem is, if I'm him,
maybe 12 million will make him happy. You don't know.
Well, I'm looking at my peers. Okay. All right. How about this? If it's 12 and I'm Derrick, I'm looking at my peers in that 12 category, and I'm saying to myself, Alvin Kamara at this point in his career. Now, somebody might argue, well, Derrick, you're not a young man anymore. And that would be true in NFL years, but he hasn't shown it statistically. Josh Jacobs is a bruiser, great running back. You're taking Derrick Henry every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So to me, it's like I see him up in that Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey range.
Well, hold on a second. That range there's a huge gap in that range.
There is. I'm saying in the middle.
And Jonathan, you said in that range. You said their range. Okay, but now you're saying middle.
Well, in the range of between those two.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think he'd be deserving.
Okay, I hear you in terms of pure stats. I'm just looking up ages. Alvin Kamara is 29. Jonathan Taylor is 26. Right? Yeah, 26. These are light years difference in ages. Josh Jacobs, let's look at him real quick.
Oh, they're both young dudes. I mean, these
27. I mean, so there's. I understand there have been no signs. I agree. I think last year, Derrick Henry was phenomenal. I think he was able to carry things at times where Lamar could stay healthy and not have to be Superman week in and week out. So I have plenty of value, but I'm telling you how front offices and GMs and how all of them think, and they're going to be looking at that age. And if it were just stats, Bobby, then he could get the 20 million because he had over 2,000 yards like Saquon did. If it was just purely stats, but that's not what it is. That's not how this works, right? The same thing. We talk about this all the time. The best quarterback isn't necessarily the highest paid quarterback. It's the most recent, right? So when you're talking about stats, that's certainly one huge part of it, but it's not the only part of it. It's not exactly how it works. And so, like it or not, age does matter, and especially at the running back position. And so far, Derrick Henry has defied it 1,000%. But if we're only stats, then you should be saying, okay, you should get the 20 million like Saquon, right? But you're even saying, okay, wait, age comes into it. When is he going to fall off? All that kind of stuff. And so to me, I stick with around the 12 million. If you wanted to put him above Alvin, like you said, between Jonathan and Christian, I'd say between Alvin and Jonathan. So maybe in
Alvin
that
and
13 million.
Jonathan. Yeah. So we're talking about, I mean, we're somewhere in the ballpark of like a $3 to $5 million difference in terms of,
Which is a lot.
yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're
And
the
you
Ravens.
you having 19 million as your top. That's where I kind of like my eyebrows, my ears perked up. I was like, I don't know about 19 million. He's close to the Saquon Barkley range.
Again, to be clear on that, it's somewhere between Christian and Jonathan, not necessarily at the upper echelon of that in 19. I don't think that's, to me, at this point in Derrick's career. And then adding on to what you're saying about the front office perspective, yes, of course, they're going to be very careful with how they go about this, because at any given point, even though he has defied odds and he is defying history, at any given point, that cliff could start to flirt. That cliff could start to come out of nowhere. So they got to be careful of that. They obviously have to. What's the mitigating? What is it? Not mitigating risk, but what's the proper word for when you're trying to get out ahead of risk, projecting risk, or
like hedge your bets.
There's a term that is slipping my mind right now. But anyway, clearly he's deserving of an extension. Clearly he was the best bargain in all of football last year. So we'll see what that number ends up becoming.
All right. So let's see here. Just following up on those that wanted to say.
Well, we have a couple super chats too before, if you want to give them preference here.
Where did we leave off?
Let's see. Richard's following up on his David Ojabo bold statement, which says 7 sacks for Ojabo coming up, which I asked him, where the heck is that confidence coming from? And his response, my gut, bro. I said the same thing about Bateman last year. Dreams, Queon, Sarah.
He says, I second that. Ojabo is due for a 5+ sack season. This year, he will trust his body. He did have the first sack of the year last season.
Man. All right. And one more from Queon. Lamar, Dehen, Likely, Linderbaum, K-Ham, and maybe Travis Jones. EDC has work to do. They're going to need money growing on trees in Baltimore. And one from C King that just came in.
Says Henry is going to be a beast for all eternity. Father time ain't going to do nothing on him, so saith I, C King. Listen, it's almost like equating. It's like I said, the best quarterback isn't necessarily the highest paid quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, who leads the league, is not the highest paid quarterback. And so I feel like a lot of people are taking what I'm saying cap wise and saying, oh, okay, well then she doesn't think Henry is good or something like that. That is not it. Like, Patrick Mahomes is not the highest paid quarterback, and it's almost not even close. I believe his average is still at 45 million, and there are guys getting 60 now. And so the cap and how people are playing do not always match up. And so this has nothing to do with my projection of what Derrick Henry can or will do. But you guys, I don't even think Derrick Henry would expect 20 million a year. And the way you're trying to equate last year's production, you're basically saying then he should get 20 million. And that's, I don't even think Derrick Henry would be in there being like, give me my 20 million. Like the two don't necessarily completely correlate. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, first of all, I dropped off for a second there, so I didn't hear your full point there. But yeah, of course, he doesn't want to cap strap them more than they already are. One of the reasons why he came to Baltimore was he wasn't getting to where he wanted to be, the mountaintop in Tennessee. So some of this, along with the DeAndre Hopkins of the world at this point in their career, is about potentially not exactly, money earning maybe isn't priority number one. It's always going to be a factor. You want to get your own worth. But ultimately, these guys are chasing something that's bigger than that in their minds, maybe, for Lombardi. So I get it. There's a bunch of different perspectives to look at. And I just continue to think that this guy is so one of one. He's such an outlier in what we have of 100-year plus history at the position, that while there is always a risk when you're on the other side of 30 of extending a running back that is aging, man, the longer you can preserve 2 future Hall of Famers in the same backfield, the better.
Yeah.
And I know, and that's obviously not.
That's not the conversation. It's not the conversation. Yeah, that's not the conversation. It's like it's what is realistic of what he would get given how NFL business is done.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
And real quick, I did look it up. Patrick Mahomes, tied for the 13th highest paid player in terms of average value per year. He's tied with Kirk Cousins at $45 million. Dak Prescott, number 1 at $60 million right now. So again, just remember, cap does not necessarily mean who's the best or, how much you expect from them or anything like that.
Few Lombardis to show for it too over that contract span. So
seriously. Real quick, I asked some people to follow up on where they think I called it a hit, and they said not. I saw one say Ben Cleveland fought Alele, and then the third one doesn't matter. Listen, I call Ben Cleveland at least a bunt. Fought Alele, full starter. I stand by that's a hit. And then Dre Dog says that I called too many wide receivers hits. Devin Duvernay might have been the one in question or whatnot. So anyway, I just wanted to ask that question to see if something flew flying over my head, but that just made me more confident in what I said. So.
RNTY1 says, Bobby and Sarah and Voltrons have an awesome weekend. You do the same. Appreciate you. And we got to get some patrons. Are we shifting Ray to Monday?
Yeah, we can do that Monday.
Thank you. And Jimmy Rice and Richard Harris are this episode's monthly shout-out sponsors. We appreciate you for all the support that you guys give us through Patreon. Jimmy, Richard, thank you guys. If you're interested in doing the same, you can visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. We just rolled out a brand new Discord server that we're going to have worked on in the background. There's already a couple members in there because basically we made it available. If you're a patron of ours in a few of the tiers, then automatically you have access. It's now linked to our Patreon account. So we're going to do the same for channel members as well. So if you guys are interested in joining that group, it'll be basically like a glorified live chat, just 24/7. Doesn't have to be when we're live. And it's a great way to interact with us. It's a great way to interact with others that are subscribers. And obviously it's all centered around Ravens 24/7. So appreciate you guys. And best of luck to the Ellisons. We got another super chat as well. Go ahead.
Habitual Line Stepper saying, love the banter about Ben. Double Roger Rosengarten. He's a home run. He could be. I'm not there yet after a rookie. That part of the jury's still out. I'm not there quite yet, but he definitely could be. If he becomes the franchise left tackle of the future, which he very well could, then we're talking home run.
Let's just put it this way: there's no need to throw a little jury still out tag on him, right? He doesn't need that label whatsoever. But yeah, we did have some good banter about Ben.
Yeah,
the Ben banter.
It's funny because people were saying that we weren't saying what kind of hits when we were, but it's them. It's the chat that's not seeing the difference. I called him a bunt. Ben Cleveland. He got a second contract. That's a bunt. Yeah.
We're not on lockstep there. Isaiah says Fa'alele will get paid. He's a hit. What would the dialogue been this time last year if we said, hey, let's take a look at Daniel Fa'alele. Is he a hit or a miss this time last year?
I just don't know how you can call a 17-game starter, as much as I didn't love him and he made me nervous. How do you call a 17-game starter a miss? Can't do it.
I'm in agreement with it here, and we got to obviously a lot of this requires a little bit of swallowing of words, in the past, because the Ravens stood by him, Harbaugh stood by him, and he proved to be a Pro Bowl caliber player last year at right guard, didn't he?
Well, no.
I'm just saying.
He was like what? Far, far down the depth of Pro Bowls. That I said that before. That narrative keeps getting bigger by the year.
Mr. Alternate.
By the day.
Mr.
Oh,
Alternate.
man, I love the chat today. I love the spiciness today. Some fun banter, as they've said.
Who knew evaluating DaCosta would bring that out? No, of course we did know that. It's a very polarizing topic, the draft.
Yeah.
So there you go. Good stuff. More to come, obviously, coming up on 10 days, April 24th. We look forward to that. You and I are working on our mega cast for opening night. We'll start at 7:00 on Thursday, April 24th. Last year we went to midnight. Hard to believe. It was a 5-hour show. So we'll see what this year brings. We've got a lot of ideas that we're working on. So we look forward to all that and more. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Good luck to Aiden in London, performing in Annie in different capacities this weekend in Columbus. Partner, hope you have an awesome time in the audience. And all of you enjoy Masters weekend, enjoy spring. It's anything but here. It's rainy and cold and windy. So I don't know if I've seen the summer. I don't think I've seen the sun since I got back from Columbus. Actually, excuse me.
No, you had
before I
days.
left for Columbus, because I didn't see it in Columbus.
No. You had 1 or 2 days. I remember saying, hey, the sun's out. You're like, hey, yeah, we got a little bit too. It's been far and few between, though. Like 95% cloudiness, that's for sure. But that's April for you.
Yeah. Brutal.
April showers brings May flowers.
They better. All right, everybody. Thanks for a great week, for hanging with us. We appreciate you. Look out for our short form episode dropping at 4:00. You can find all that in the playlist called Best Of here inside the Vault. We hope you have an awesome weekend. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Friday episode. We'll be back on Monday, 12 noon Eastern. You guys know the drill. And as always, thanks for spending some time with us here inside the Vault. We will catch up with you on Monday at